For millions, it must have seemed like a dream. Who were these conquerors from New York that had dealt Goliath such a blow? Were they dreamers? Not really, just a football team. This is their story.
It's my honor to open today's welcoming ceremonies for our conquering team, and it is a privilege, on behalf of the greatest city in the world, to pay tribute to the greatest football team in the world, the New York Jets.
If their 1968 season was to end in a dream, the Jets had to face reality in their very first game against one of the league's best teams, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Jets would beat the Chiefs in a close game, a game that was virtually a mirror image of their entire season. Joe Namath and his superb corps of receivers would provide many of the points. When Namath could not throw touchdowns, Jim Turner's field goals would often be the winning margin, as they were today. The defense would prevent even the best offense from scoring touchdowns. The Chiefs scored none. And finally, the ability of the offense to control the ball late in the game, as they did for 6 minutes against the Chiefs, would secure many victories. Victories that eventually would lead New York to the summit of pro football. Three weeks later, the Jets opened their home season against San Diego before the largest crowd in AFL history. Again, they faced one of the league's strongest teams on a night that often resembled a graceful yet violent ballet. The Jets trailed by 4 with 5 minutes to play. Joe Namath took over for one last drive. Though he would fail to throw a touchdown in this and the next 5 games, his passes to valuable swingman Mark Smolinski set up the running of Emerson Boozer, who finally scored with 1 minute left. But it was left to Johnny Sample and the defense to preserve victory. The Jets had again beaten off a strong challenge with defense and ball control, the stuff of which champions are made. If there had been a surprise thus far, it was the ability of the Jets' offensive line, known mainly for its pass blocking, to help establish a strong ground game, a ground attack that was both deep and versatile. Veteran Bill Mathis scored 5 times in a spot roll. Villanova's Billy Joe, number 35, is perhaps the strongest reserve fullback in football. In 1967, number 32, Emerson Boozer, was injured for half the season, but still led the league in touchdowns. This year, Boozer scored less, but developed his blocking and receiving to become a complete runner. Although with great speed and good power, he is still a threat to score. Matt Snell carried the brunt of the Jets' running attack, and like Boozer, he is a most versatile setback. Known almost as well for his role as a blocker, Snell fully recovered from a knee injury that sidelined him last year and led the team in rushing with over 700 yards. Snell's recovery and the ability of the offense to rely on more than one man's arm were instrumental in the Jets' greatest season. A wise old man once said that offense draws crowds, defense wins championships. After 5 years of building, Coach Wee Bubank finally achieved such a defense, the #1 defense in the league.
Kill him! Come on.
It was an alert and aggressive defense, known more for its results than for its brawn. Unlike most teams, the Jets had a front five. Carl McAdams, number 50, often helped out at tackle. McAdams helped veteran Paul Rochester, number 72. And second-year man John Elliott, number 80, known affectionately as Big Bad John. From the outside came number 86, Berlin Biggs, at 270 pounds, remarkably agile, and an expert hand fighter. And at left end stood Jerry Philbin, number 81, the first of 3 Jets to make the AFL NFL All-Pro team. Philbin's quick reactions and great pursuit finally brought him the recognition he had long deserved as a lineman's lineman. With this kind of pressure from the front line, linebackers Ralph Baker, Larry Grantham, and Al Atkinson were able to play deeper than usual, important strategy in molding a great defense. This made the surprise element of the blitz even more effective, and the Jet linebackers were adept at its execution. The Jets' last line of defense, its secondary, was perhaps the only one in pro football to contain 4 free agents. Defensive captain Johnny Sample sometimes had to control his teammates' emotions, but most of the time, Sample vented his own. Always a fierce competitor, Sample would this year realize a dream when he would take revenge on the league that had dropped him 4 years ago. Randy Beverly, number 42, is one of the Jets' bright new stars. The strong and speedy sophomore cornerback would later make a lasting impression on the Baltimore Colts. Number 48, Cornell Gordon, alternated with these two. In his 6th year, Bill Baird, number 46, was a steady performer at free safety. And sure tackling Jim Hudson, number 22, rounded out a defense that led the league against the run, was second against the pass, and helped transform the Jets from a good team into a great one. But the Jets had lost 2 of 5 games thus far, and the Astrodome became the setting for a crucial contest with Houston. Last year, the Oilers won the Eastern title by 1 game over New York with a strong defense. Today, it was the Jets' defense, led by John Elliott, that was to shine under the artificial sky of the Astrodome. Shut out for 3 quarters. Houston rallied, however, and took a 1-point lead with 4 minutes to play. Namath once again had to engineer a time-consuming drive downfield. With 50 seconds left, Matt Snell finally scored. And the Jets had achieved another last-minute victory that propelled them into a division lead they would never relinquish. Against Boston, the Jets enjoyed their first real breather of the season. The defense caused 8 turnovers and set up half the touchdowns in a 48-14 rout of the Patriots. Against Buffalo, however, it was not the collective legs of the defense that would give New York its 6th victory, but rather the strong right leg of Jim Turner, who kicked 6 field goals today and went on to kick 34 for a pro football record. Turner's adept right leg earned him the league scoring title with more points than any pure kicker has ever recorded. The Jets next faced a rematch with the Houston Oilers in a downpour at Shea Stadium. It was really no contest. Number 51, Ralph Baker, led a defense that by now had established itself as a formidable obstacle, one that Joe Namath said eased his burden tremendously. But Namath continued to guide the Jets well. His strategic passing, 4 Turner field goals, and the running of Bill Mathis produced a 26-7 victory. Last year, the Oilers eliminated New York on the final day. Today, in only the 9th week, New York had all but eliminated them. But it was fitting that 2 weeks later in San Diego, a city with a history of champions, the Jets would clinch their first title ever. Their 37-15 victory over the Chargers was a culmination of all New York had worked for. They had held the most explosive attack in the league to 200 total yards, while they themselves had racked up over 500. Namath was again throwing touchdowns, and this 87-yard scoring pass to Don Maynard was the longest in Jet history. 4 days later, the Oilers lost to Kansas City, and the New York Jets became Eastern Division champions. A team of talent and a team of depth. Veterans Babe Parilli and Bake Turner led the Jets through their last 3 games, and they finished with 11 victories, a club record. 11 victories. 11 victories on the legs of Jim Turner, on the blocking of linemen like Winston Hill, who led their powerful runners into the end zone for more touchdowns than any other team. On a conservative yet tenacious defense that never stopped hitting, never let down. And 11 victories on a trio of Texans, perhaps the best set of receivers in football. Tight end Pete Lammons, possibly the Jets' best blocker, is a tough man to tackle with the ball. Don Maynard's sideburns are not quite as long as his legs, and not nearly as long as his impressive record. In 1968, Maynard passed Raymond Berry in yards gained to become the most prolific receiver in history. In his brilliant 11-year career, Maynard has caught over 500 passes good for over 5 miles and has set many team and league records. With great moves and the long stride of a thoroughbred, country Don Maynard will continue to charm and excite New Yorkers until he retires. Split-in George Sauer is not as shifty nor as fast as Don Maynard. All he has are the best hands in pro football. Sauer finished second in receiving, but was still named to the combined all-pro team. So the Jets were a total team: defense, runners, receivers, and there was someone else. With his hair grew Joe Namath's reputation as football's most colorful and most gifted passer. But if his epitaph were to be written today, it would say that in 1968, Joe Namath ceased to be just a great passer and became a great quarterback. Namath has long played with two fragile knees, a tribute to his undying courage, while also a tribute to his protection, the best any quarterback could hope for. And one that allowed him to do his thing. And in 1968, Broadway Joe did his thing. To Namath, numbers didn't matter, only results. And when the Jets won all but one of the games in which he failed to throw a touchdown, Namath's ability to win, to lead New York long and far, became irrefutable. While others doubted, Joe believed and fulfilled his team's greatest ambition. For millions of his fanatic followers, only Joe Namath could do it. And Joe Namath did. Joe Namath and his teammates entered the AFL championship as underdogs to the Oakland Raiders. But the Jets were a proud team, and they remembered an earlier game in Oakland that came to be known as the Heidi Bowl. In that game, Namath had passed and run his team to an early lead. But Darryl LaMonica had also been sharp, and the lead changed often until the Jets led by 3 with 1 minute left. Then TV gave way to a little girl. Only Raider fans would be able to enjoy the unbelievable finish that ended in a victory for Oakland. That was 6 weeks ago and 3,000 miles away. Today in New York, Heidi would not interfere. It was a windy day, and both coaches wondered if their explosive offenses would be able to score at all. They were almost right. Only 2 touchdowns were scored by halftime.
Let's get on the board. What's your throw? Second to him. Nothing, come on!
The Jets took a 13-10 lead into the third quarter.
All right, off defense, just keep your poise now.
The defense kept its poise.
Chop!
They stopped Oakland on a goal line stand that resulted in only a field goal and saved 4 points. Then, late in the third quarter, Coach Eubank called for some strategy.
How about a cue, run the guy into that sauce up, then go to the sideline. Come on, Joe, we can do it again! Dig it out, baby!
The strategy worked to perfection.
He's in there! Touchdown! Touchdown! Get him, Big Green!
But Oakland took the lead in the final quarter. Namath had 6 minutes to regain it. With 2 passes to Maynard, he did.
Come on, baby, our game, let's go! Come on, let's get the first down!
There was time enough for Oakland to move the ball to the Jets' 12. Then came the play of the year for New York, a play worthy of repeating. A pass thrown behind an imaginary line. Out of thousands, one play, and an AFL championship.
Congratulations. Oh, you son of a gun, boy. Great guy. I'll tell you. We're going to get it. That's right. Happy for you, guys. Never come this quick. Absolutely. It's quick. 4 years, you know. You'd think it took a long time coming. 4 years. You want to win every year, first year on. Nothing else matters to me, winning. Whether I catch 1 or 10, nothing else matters.
For Don Maynard and the Jets, there was one more game to win, a game that would not soon be forgotten. The third annual Super Bowl was supposed to be a farce. The so-called experts had given the Jets 2 chances of winning, little and none. But they had forgotten something. They forgot to tell Coach Weeb Eubank. They forgot to tell a cool and confident Joe Namath. And they forgot to tell the New York Jets. The experts said Jim Turner's toe would fail him in the big game, but nobody told Turner, whose 3 field goals were the margin of difference. The experts said the mighty Colt defense that some thought was football's best in a decade would chew up the Jets' ground game, but nobody told Matt Snell, who with outstanding blocking racked up 130 yards and scored the game's first touchdown. The experts said Joe Namath would be lucky to escape alive from the Colts' front line, and his receivers too nervous to catch his passes, but nobody told Namath, whose quick release and accurate throws to George Sauer completely fooled the blitzing Colts. And finally, the experts said Earl Morrall and the Colts' passing attack would burn the Jets' weak secondary into the Orange Bowl ground. But nobody told Sample, Hudson, Baird, and Beverly, who with great pressure from the front line were able to make 4 key interceptions that were in fact the difference between defeat and a 16-7 victory. Neither the razzle-dazzle of Earl Morrall nor the appearance of John Unitas could change the result. When time had graciously run out on the once invincible, now bitterly disappointed NFL champions, experts said they had witnessed the greatest upset in sports history. But Weeb Eubank felt differently. He had said it would be a simple matter of poise and execution. The Jets had kept their poise and executed flawlessly. Now their season-long goal was no longer just a dream. Later, the feelings of an entire team were expressed by a man who came to the Jets only last summer, guard Bob Talamini.
I will say this to everybody, we're humble winners. I think the AFL should be humble winners also. I'd like to think that this will bring all of football closer together, because if this does anything, this will solidify the thinking of the public that football is football, the American League and the NFL can be mentioned in the same breath.
40 men, a coach, and a goal. For 7 months they had labored, and now the fruits of their labor had brought them to the top. The New York Jets were pro football's world champions.